Welcome to Moomba 2019. If you've never heard of Moomba, that's the Australian version, kind of a Mardi Gras. They hold it in Sydney every year, right around this time of the year, which is kind of like late summer down there. Just a bunch of people milling around, drinking, having fun. Take your kids down, watch some rides, watch some entertainment. 4 years ago, the fellas started showing up at Moomba. Soon after, there were large-scale episodes of black mob violence, riots, attacks on cops, attacks on fairgoers, property destruction, people stealing stuff. Stop me if you've heard that story before. Down in Australia, they've heard it before, and they heard it again this week, where they just had Moomba again. Anyway, why don't we start off by listening to this woman from Australia describe the events. This woman is my new hero.
I cannot believe it that we are allowing this to happen in our country. And I spoke to the president of the Police Association in Melbourne a few years ago. He said at the Moomba Festival then, they saw the gangs that were taking over, the violence that were happening. They were told not to go in to deal with it. They said they would pick it up on CTV footage. They've been told to shut down. Police they talk to, they got their hands tied because it's coming from high up. Don't do anything about it. These are Africans. When I'm seeing the footage here, they are Africans. Let's call it out for what it is. These people are coming from countries, they're used to violence on the streets, they're used to this gang war, and they bring in that habit here to our streets in Australia, and we're not putting a stop to it. I blame the authorities, I blame the government, and for them not doing their job. And the people are crying out. I spoke to an elderly couple that said, our streets are taken over. She said, we live in a suburb that we don't have any peace. She said, we're frightened. This is the age, this is the pensioners, these are the ones that don't know what to do. They can't rely on the government to actually clean up their streets and deal with this, and it's only going to get worse. And the people out there, if you think that it's only going to stay in Melbourne, think twice about it, because it's starting to happen in other places around the country.
Okay, let's run through some clips, current and previous, of the goings-on at Moomba.
It's a terrifying sight. Dozens of youths clashing on the streets of Melbourne CBD in the midst of what is supposed to be a family-friendly festival.
Some of that vision that we've seen uploaded is confronting for the general person at home.
One video shows the brawlers throwing punches at each other next to St Paul's Cathedral. Violence also exploded both inside and outside Flinders Street Station. In one incident, a young girl is thrown through the air by a protective services officer. She'd been trying to intervene in an arrest.
Arrest situations are dynamic scenarios for both the police and the persons directly involved. They are an uncertain environment and they're a dangerous environment. If we give you advice to keep out of an area, it's with good reason and with good intent.
The thugs responsible, all members of rival gangs.
Some of them absolutely assume banners and tags of street gangs. There's some pre-existing tensions between these groups.
Police are aware of the groups and are actively monitoring them.
It's a group that is quite dynamic. It ranges in number. Some periods of time it'll be 100, 150, sometimes it's 200, 250.
Despite this violence, authorities say that, in general, they're impressed by the behaviour of the crowds and that crime at Moomba is down on previous years.
So what we're seeing is a relatively quiet CBD Friday, Saturday, Sunday night this year. Not to say, as I say, that we haven't seen some incidents and some behaviour that concerns us.
Patrick Murrell, Sky News, Melbourne.
Watch as the frightened young girl in the Ed Sheeran t-shirt runs into the arms of a friend as a large group of men rampage behind her before storming a tram. Concerned, several police officers swoop.
This is 7 News with Jennifer Kite.
Good evening. Two armed gangs of young thugs are threatening a violent confrontation at tonight's Moomba Festival. We're live now to Melina Saris, who has been following this story. Melina, what do we know about this threat?
Well, Jen, 7 News has been given information that two gangs are set to meet in the city here tonight. Police are investigating and have confirmed that they are aware of a confrontation set to take place here this evening. The fight is being organised on social media and the notorious Apex gang is believed to be involved. A photo of weapons including baseball bats, poles, knuckle dusters, machetes and knives was sent out on Snapchat. Police have stepped up their presence here tonight in response to this. They know the Apex Group is a gang of teenage criminals that are responsible for a series of car thefts in the southeastern suburbs. There are thousands of families expected in the city here tonight for the Moomba fireworks, and police have said that they will do everything they can to ensure the event is safe.
5 people in relation to the Moomba Festival. In one instance, we can see a young girl walking down by Flinders Street station last night. When she appeared in more bystander vision, we can see a group of youths throwing punches and shoving each other before disbanding. Police also had to use capsicum spray.
So back in 2016, the newspapers were a little less flinching about what they would call these episodes of large-scale black mob violence. They called them the Moomba riots, and they're linked to an African gang called Apex. Apex is a bunch of immigrants from Africa that basically are just lawless, violent people. They do also bad stuff all over the country, period. And a lot of them got arrested that night at Moomba. Lots of video on Apex if you're so inclined to look at it. We've done a lot of stories on Apex. But it's weird how everybody, no matter if you're in Australia or France or South Africa or here, all the fellas, they're playing from the same script. If you go out and commit enormous levels of crime, violence, mayhem, attacking police, destroying property, stealing stuff, attacking fairgoers, if that's your thing and you get caught, the first thing you do is blame that on white racism because the cops were picking on you. That's what they did down there in Australia back during the first big explosion of black violence at the Moomba Festival. Here's the headline. South Sudanese Australians. I didn't even know that was a word. Sudanese Australians.
Please, sir. I want some more.
South Sudanese Australians report racial abuse intensified after African gangs claims. Okay, so these things went way beyond the boundary of claims. 20 years ago, if Colin would have showed up and said, hey, I heard a bunch of black people were, doing all sorts of horrific stuff in Australia at the Moomba Festival, that's a claim. Putting a video camera on the fellas while they do it with glee, shouting, shrieking, laughing in ecstasy. Well, that's not really a claim anymore, is it? That's pretty much just saying, hey, here's what happened. But introducing some doubt into that level of black violence in Australia, whether it's Australia here or there, everywhere, introducing some level of doubt. Maybe it wasn't the fellas, or maybe they really weren't violent, or maybe there were some white people involved. Using the word claim introduces some doubt into that. The more doubt you can introduce, the less you're going to make the black kids angry.